watching Canadian Muslim news on Muslim Network TV from Toronto, Ontario. I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, a conversation with Dr. Youcef Sufi about the founding of a new Canadian academic association studying Islam and Muslims. First, some news headlines. County in Nova Scotia declares state of emergency. Hate speech a priority for advocacy groups as Parliament resumes. Like Canadians, among lowest for home ownership rates in Canada. US House members introduce bill for Afghan War Commission. And plans drawn for largest Muslim cemetery in Europe. And now the details. Victoria County in Nova Scotia declared a state of emergency after floods wiped out its northeastern roads. This includes the roads heading into Cape Breton Island. Environment Canada reported that parts of Cape Breton received up to 211 millimetres of rainfall. Wind gusts in some parts of the peninsula went up to 140 kilometres an hour. Over 3,000 people were left without power since yesterday evening. Though the death toll remains unclear at this time, there have been several reports of injuries across the province. Several advocacy groups have come together to urge the federal government to tackle online hate speech as Parliament resumed yesterday. In the recent election campaign, the Liberals promised to make addressing online hate a priority in the new parliamentary session. Bill C-36, a bill highly contested by Conservative and Bloc Québécois ministers in the House for its loose wording, was proposed to address hate speech before it died on the table when Parliament was dissolved in August. Fatima Abdallah, the communication coordinator at the National Council of Canadian Muslims, says that the issue of online hate must be addressed. Black Canadians are amongst the lowest for home ownership rates in Canada, a study conducted by Statistics Canada found. Data collected through the 2018 countrywide survey on living arrangements by Statistics Canada found that only 48% of the Black population lived in a home that was owned by a household member. For comparison, about 73% of the total Canadian population live in an owner-occupied dwelling. The survey also found that Black people were more likely to live in rented dwellings or in subsidized rental housing. The study did not look into why Black people had the lowest home ownership rates in Canada. US Congressman Peter Major and Andy Kim have introduced legislation to create a non-partisan independent commission to assess lessons learned from the 20-year war in Afghanistan. The Afghanistan War Commission Act of 2021 aims to make the results public in an unclassified report. Kim said the commission is essential to the future safety and security of the United States. The panel will probe the affairs of all US government agencies active in Afghanistan. That includes the Departments of Defense, State, and the CIA. US Senator Tammy Duckworth introduced the companion bill in the Senate. Both measures have bipartisan support. Billionaire Zubair al-Mohsen Issa proposed a plan to build Europe's largest Muslim cemetery in England. Named the Issa Memorial Gardens, the cemetery will span 82 acres of land, with enough space for 35,000 burial sites. This is 25,000 more sites than the current largest Muslim cemetery in England, the Garden of Peace. The brothers saw a need in the community for a Muslim cemetery, which was later reinforced by the fallout of COVID. If approved, the cemetery will serve Muslims in the area for the next 50 to 100 years. And now our interview with Dr. Youcef Sufi about his founding of a new academic association in Canada studying Islam and Muslims. Welcome to the show, Dr. Youcef. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, Dr. Kathy.
Thanks for joining us. Now, I don't know if you know or if the viewers know, but I actually used to be vice president of an association called the Association of Muslim Social Scientists back in the mid-2000s. And it changed its name a few years ago to the North American Association of Islam and Muslim Studies. we used to hold regional conferences in Canada, and there used to be Canadian academics on the board, but it was mostly based in the US, and the annual conference was always in the US. And I always thought it'd be great if we had like a Canadian-only association. But by the time I stepped down from AMSS, I was just tired and didn't have the energy. So now a young person like you has come along and founded a new association. Can you just tell us what was the impetus for you, what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, there were a few things. One is that academics in Canada tend to associate more with the large American associations. And it seemed to me that the contributions, the networking that Canadian scholars of Islam and Muslims could be doing were kind of dwarfed by all the activities that were going on in American associations. So associations like the American Association of Religion, the AAR, the American Association of Anthropology, the AAA, or the Middle Eastern Studies Association, MESA. So I thought to myself, it would be good if Canadian scholars had some sort of organization that could facilitate networking between them, that could facilitate future research, funding opportunities. And so a few years back, I reached out to other junior scholars across Canadian universities, scholars that were friends of mine. And I asked them, do you feel that there's this need? And there was a lot of enthusiasm. And so I realized that, okay, a lot of people are feeling, other scholars are feeling that would be really good.
So you found a lot of younger scholars who felt they were being dwarfed by the American associations. I know that academic studies are very siloed each in this discipline, so sociology or medieval studies or Islamic studies or political science. Was that also a concern for you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So if you take a look at the Canadian universities, other than McGill, that has this long established institute that brings together various scholars of Islam and Muslims coming from different disciplinary backgrounds. Yeah, like you said, we tend to be siloed. So I myself am a classicist. I did my PhD in a religious studies department. I could fit in a religious studies department. I could fit in history department, especially one that works on the medieval period, medieval studies. I was at UBC in a classical Near Eastern and religious studies department, but some colleagues of mine are squarely trained in anthropology, others in sociology. They all work on Muslims,
and people outside academia won't really understand why that matters. So can you tell us about how why it matters and how your association is aiming to fix that?
So then what happens is if you're working within a particular discipline, that's your department, and that's who you see more frequently are people within that discipline. And so we need mechanisms to bring us together. Things like conferences, talks. I'm at the Institute of Islamic Studies right now, and one of the reasons that the U of T, and this is at the U of T, one of the reasons the U of T established this about a decade ago is because they recognized that they had so many scholars working on Islam like yourself, and that they didn't have a mechanism, a means to come together, to sit around the table, and to advertise their activities. So I'd say that's the real reason, is that if you're siloed in different departments, your conversations are limited and your support for each other is limited.
And you mentioned that you'd reached out several years ago. So has there been a long period of conversations? I believe you're launching this year.
Yeah, that's right. We launched in September. We had a provisional constitution. It remains a provisional constitution, but we had a large number of faculty from across Canada take a look at the constitution, say, okay, this is good. We'll accept it provisionally, and we've got a conference in May 2022 at McMaster University. And at that conference, hopefully, we'll have an elected council that will finalize this constitution. But yeah, it took a lot of steps to get this going. So a few years back was me talking to friends, to other junior colleagues, saying, "Hey, do you think there's a need here? Would you want to join a provisional group of officers that would get together and build this association?" And then we reached out to more senior scholars, people who have a lot of guidance to offer us, who have done this already. You mentioned, like yourself, you have been an integral part of an association in the past. So, for us, it's newer terrain.
Are there a lot of Muslim academics in Canada? Do you have any statistics on that?
No, I don't have statistics. My impression is that there are a lot and that they're an increasing cohort. We know the study of Islam, Muslims, historically it was a European discipline, and it was not one that had many Muslims in it until recently. But now, when you take a look at the names of faculty, when you take a look at the students that are part of graduate programs, you can see that there's a large number of Muslims that take a real interest in the academy.
There's been a lot of problems with academic study of Islam and Muslims. We know the whole genre known as Orientalism, which is based in sort of essentializing racism. Do you think that having an association like yours is a really important step forward in changing knowledge production about Muslims?
I think that's a good question. So I'll answer in two ways. I think the fact that Muslims from all different backgrounds, Muslims with different commitments, Muslims from different sects, are taking an interest in the academy and are obtaining positions within the academy is definitely changing the research questions and methods that have been problematic historically. Qasim, that isn't its mandate. But I think that there are two things about Qasim. One is we are highly attuned to questions of marginalization along axes of race and gender, for instance. And it's a core commitment of ours to try to mitigate power imbalances and to include people that have been on the margins historically. So that's one thing. That's our personal commitment to equity. But also, I think that by facilitating the research of like new research in Islam or on Muslims, some of those issues about the representation of Muslims will also be diminished. And I think
a lot of people in the Muslim community look upon not just the Muslim community, the academics, the ivory tower, and so distracted from reality and not connected. How do you see Qasim, or do you see Qasim trying to connect and interact with the wider Muslim community that has nothing to do with academia? And this will be our last question, if you could wrap it up briefly for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're primarily an academic association. There's a way in which that makes us, no matter what, ivory tower, but we are interested in thinking as a national association. We are interested in thinking about issues that are important to Muslims and issues that relate to Islam at a public level. So I think as we move forward, as we get to be a larger association, there'll be occasions when you'll see that Qasim will make a statement regarding certain occurrences at the national level. And because of that, we'll be engaged in public discussions inevitably.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us on the show, and good luck with your new association.
Thank you very much.